Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the civil war that is taking place inside the former state of Ethiopia, and specifically the ongoing issue of Eritrea. And just real quickly, we'll do a very quick synopsis and debrief over the continued civil war that is ongoing inside the former state of Ethiopia. The fighting continues in Oromia. There is still very much a civil war occurring inside Oromia between the Oromo Liberation Army and the Abiy Ahmed loyalist forces. Additionally, if we go back just a couple of years ago when the Abiy loyalist forces launched its quote-unquote law enforcement operation, which was in fact an all-out invasion of the Tigray region, the military objectives, the military goals, the political goals of the Abiy loyalist forces was twofold: the destruction of the TPLF and the capture and or the killing of all key leadership figures of the TPLF. Additionally, the military goal was the destruction of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. So as we sit here today, neither of those goals were accomplished. The Tigrayan Defense Forces still exist, much larger, in fact, in terms of force structure than what it looked like at the start of the war. And then finally, the TPLF still exists as well, with all of its major leadership figures still inside of Tigray. So, was the war successful for Abiy Ahmed? No, it was not. It was unsuccessful because those military goals were not accomplished. Now, more importantly, what happens next? And all eyes right now are on, obviously, Eritrea. Eritrea, in its current state, cannot exist without war. The despotic regime of Isaias Afwerki and his methodology of rule simply cannot exist without war. The regime essentially is the military and the military-industrial complex. The population base is not large. Some estimate that the population of Eritrea is around 3 million people, possibly up to 6 million. If you look at Eritrea on the Google Earth map and you look at population densities, in all probability, Eritrea has a population of about 3 million people, maybe a little more. I seriously doubt Eritrea has 6 million people living inside of it. Now, every man and woman coming of fighting age inside of Eritrea has to serve in the armed forces. Many people flee Eritrea because they do not want to be conscripted into the Eritrean army. When you have this kind of Spartan state, where anywhere from 6 to 10% of the gross national product goes towards the military apparatus, then that state has to be in a perpetual state of armed conflict. You cannot, as Eritrea exists, continue to be a viable state where Isaias Afwerki is in power if you are not fighting wars against perceived enemies. And that could be the perceived enemy of Sudan. It could be the enemy that it perceives in Tigray, or even possibly Ethiopia proper. It could be a threat it perceives from Djibouti. But Eritrea has to be in a state of perpetual war to succeed. If there is no war, there is no need for, or perceived threat, there is no need for universal conscription of every able-bodied male and female. There is no need to have entire military cities out in the desert where you send the youth to become indoctrinated in the cult of Isaias Afwerki and whoever his successor is going to be, or successors. It's just not practical. So you can absolutely be assured that Eritrea will be fighting someone in the not too distant future. It has to. The state only exists in its current form if it is at war with someone. That's how Isaias Afwerki stays in power. So I anticipate in the not too distant future we will see another war take place. Obviously, Isaias Afwerki is incredibly upset that the Tigray region is still, for all intents and purposes, a semi-independent state, with its military still intact, and the leadership prior to this invasion that took place, this war that took place, with the direct support of Eritrea, is still present as well. So it's difficult to say what the future brings, but there's one thing that you can be certain of, is that Isaias Afwerki will start another war with one of his neighbors. He has to. He cannot exist without that happening. So we'll continue to observe. We will continue to report. Thank you for joining us today as we continue this coverage, and we will obviously, as things occur, as we get more information, which is very difficult to do in this region, continue our reports. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.